Hey there, back with another book haul for you. These are books that I accumulated at the end of May, kind of beginning of June. This is a week we call Employee Appreciation Week at Barnes & Noble, where we get like an extra percentage off of our usual discount. So there weren't any books or novels that I was really interested in picking up at this time, and I decided to just kind of focus on mostly manga to kind of continue with the series that I'm already involved in. So there's 14 books here. The first one is only one that is the exception. It's not a manga, and I actually picked it up a couple days ago at Half Price Books. And it's a middle grade book. This is the Eddie Dickens Trilogy by Philip Ardagh. It's a middle grade series. There are 3 books in one. Obviously, it's a trilogy. Do I need to say that? There's another series, though, another trilogy called The Further Adventures of Eddie Dickens. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to find that one there. But I have read all of them at one point or another, or listened to them. And I had just only the very first book in this series in my possession, a little thin little one, and I could never find the other ones in print anywhere until I happened to stumble across this wonderful little trilogy. This contains the books Awful End, Dreadful Acts, and Terrible Times, and it is just a totally hilarious middle grade book series. I'll read the synopsis for you here. When Eddie Dickens's parents go yellow, crinkly around the edges, and smell of old hot water bottles, he's sent away to live with Mad Uncle Jack, even madder Aunt Maud, and her stuffed stoat called Malcolm. And so begins a series of outrageous adventures involving escaped convicts, missing jewels, cucumber-waving orphans, and a hollow cow called Marjorie. It's almost beyond description, the quirky things that happen in this series, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's full of wonderful little spot illustrations throughout the book. Crazy characters, as you could tell by the even madder Aunt Maud. She's quite nuts. But I really got a kick out of it. It kind of reminded me a little bit of the crazy characters you get in Series of Unfortunate Events. But I enjoyed this a heck of a lot better. I felt that got a little repetitious after a while. But I'm really hoping to find The Further Adventures of Eddie Dickens, which includes Dubious Deeds, Horrendous Habits, and Final Curtain. So yep, that's the only non-manga book in this haul. So continuing with the manga, I picked up the second book in the Girl from the Other Side series by Nagabi. And this is book 1, which I haven't read yet. I'm kind of waiting until I get a few more copies in this series. But I'll read the synopsis from book 1 for you. In a land far away there were 2 kingdoms. The outside, where twisted beasts roamed and could curse with a touch, and the inside, where humans lived in safety and peace. The girl and the beast should never have met, but when they do, a quiet fairy tale begins. This is the story of 2 people, one human, one inhuman, who linger in the hazy twilight that separates night from day. And apparently, it says to be touched by an outsider is to become an outsider. So somehow he has to avoid making physical contact with her, or she would become an outsider as well. Perhaps turn into a beast like that, I don't know. But apparently, I've heard it's a real sweet kind of fairy tale story of the relationship between the 2. He becomes like a mentor for her. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into that after, like I said, after I get a couple volumes in my hands. I also picked up 2 more of the Omnibus for Blood Lad by Yuki Kodama. This is volume 7 and volume 8. I'm just about to start volume 6 this month. So I'm moving right along through this series. There are quite a lot of volumes out there, and these are, of course, 2-in-1s. And I don't want to fall too behind in this in all the various manga series I have, so I'm trying to wrap up with several of them. And the next one is one that I just realized just before I started filming this. This is the last book in this series, so that's good. I'll be able to, kind of wrap one up right off the bat. This is called Corpse Party Blood Covered Volume 5, and I just saw the final there, so I'm like, yay. This is a strange horror kind of manga about, there's a school and several students in the school, and they're talking about like the history of the school that used to be at that location, and something happens, some ritual takes place, and they are transported to that old school that used to exist on those grounds, but in different dimensions of time. And they are there was something really bad that happened. There's some murders that took place, and they start to encounter the ghosts of these dead children, and they're trying to find their way out of these separate dimensions and reconnect with each other. But there's something there's like a darkness there that's sort of changing them and turning them against each other, and you're wondering if they'll survive enough before they're turned or will be able to escape. It's just really, really great series. I like the illustrations. Let me see if I can show you that's something that's not to give away, but it's really good, bold, dark shading. I like that when it's really, really bold drawings. I hate like faint little illustrations, but it's a really great series. I'm really intrigued by it, seeing how it's going to all wrap up. And speaking of really great illustrations, this I bought originally for the illustrations. The theme of it sounds really intriguing as well. I've read a couple volumes of it, but it's been a while since I've been picking up any more, so a lot of the storyline and some of the characters have faded, so before I start reading this again, I'm going to have to start from the beginning, but probably don't see that happening maybe this year, we'll see. But I picked up Okuu. This is by Fumi Yoshinaga, and I've gotten volumes 8, 9, and 10. And I think there's still some more out there besides that. And I grabbed volume 1 really quick just to show you. This, when I first saw this, just really caught my eye. The real dark covers back there, and the illustrations are just absolutely amazing throughout. Let's give you a couple more images. I mean, from the the kendo practice to somewhere between like the chapter breaks and things. Just the costumes, the backgrounds that you see are so full. Look at that one. And the settings and things, it's really, really beautifully illustrated. So let me give you a synopsis of it. In Edo period Japan, a strange new disease called the red-faced pox has begun to prey on the country's men. Within 80 years of the first outbreak, the male population has fallen by 75%. Women have taken on the roles traditionally granted to men, even that of shogun. The men, precious providers of life, are carefully protected, and the most beautiful of the men are sent to serve in the shogun's inner chamber. So yeah, kind of, apocalyptic kind of event occurring, and it's sort of, it seems to be mostly secluded to Japan, and they've kind of tried to keep it away, keep that knowledge out of the Western world to prevent maybe any kind of, attack on their country and everything. But it's absolutely beautiful. The ones I've read so far, I remember enjoying a lot, but like I said, to get into the characters and the detail of it, I'm going to have to revisit the series. This is for mature audiences, as there are some, the sexual scenes or naked scenes and stuff like that. Sometimes when you do find them, they are wrapped, as this one still is wrapped. But just a really, really great series if you don't mind mature themes and things like that. Moving on, one that's sort of accessible to everybody. This is all ages, as it's described, and just a totally fun one. I've only read 2 volumes of it so far, and I picked up a volume 5 at half price for really cheap, but I was missing 3 and 4 to kind of continue on, so I've now gotten volume 3 and 4 of Barakamon. This is by Satsuki Yoshino, and just a super fun, delightful series about a young calligrapher, how do you say his name, Seishu Handa, it's called Handa. He is a young calligrapher who is not doing too well at work. He kind of blew up at his boss, so he's trying to, find his muse again, and he goes to this island, and it's described as a heartwarming island comedy where he meets these kind of quirky characters, and sort of just starts to kind of change his outlook and things, and I really liked all the characters. It reminds me a lot of like Yotsuba, just a really fun, humorous tale, kind of slice of life, but very accessible to anybody who's looking for a good manga kind of just jump into. The next one are 3 volumes, more omnibus. Omnibi? What's the plural of that? Omnibuses? These are by Naoki Urasawa, and it's part of the Monster series. I picked up volume 7, volume 8, and volume 9, and I believe these are, 2-in-1s. Pretty big chunky ones. And they are about a surgeon, Kenzo Tenma. You just see his face right there, and I don't want to show anymore to give away anything. But he is a brain surgeon who happens to save the life of a young boy who later goes on to become a serial killer. He actually commits a murder before he even leaves the hospital, and apparently he may have killed some foster parents prior to this. All this sort of starts to come out, but Dr. Tenma is blamed for the murders that take place within the hospital because of some arguments he had with these people prior to you know, the events in the book and stuff. But now he's on this mission to kind of track down this boy and stop him and hopefully clear his name. It's just a really great, intriguing series. I think I have another 1 or 2 of these to read before I get to the ones I've just purchased. So I have to kind of get back into the flow of this as well. And again, this is a beautifully illustrated. Urasawa just has his own unique style. When you see it, you know it's like his. Look at the detail in the backgrounds. Sometimes some of the facial features of like the male characters can kind of look alike. These characters with a sort of slightly bulbous nose kind of look a lot like a lot of the characters. But, you know, see, here's another one. He's got that same nose on most of his characters. Might be the only nose he knows how to draw. I don't know. But other than that, I mean, here's another just quick image of street scenes and stuff that, yeah, his artwork is amazing. His plot lines in this series is really great and very, very intriguing, and I absolutely love it. I highly recommend it. And the very last one I have is actually a non-fiction manga, and based on a recent disaster that happened. This was Ichi F by Kazuto Tatsuta. Tatsuta, I said that right. It is a worker's graphic memoir of the Fukushima nuclear power plant. Now this is a gentleman who happens to be a mangaka who also was working in the plant doing the cleanup after the devastating tsunami and earthquake that struck in March of 2011. I'll go ahead and read the synopsis for you. And it says this is not the story of that disaster, but what came after. On March 11th, 2011, Japan suffered the largest earthquake in its modern history. The 9.1 magnitude quake triggered a devastating tsunami that wiped away entire towns and caused, in the months afterward, 3 nuclear meltdowns on the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant. Altogether, it was the costliest natural disaster in human history. And I gotta tell you, I could still remember turning on the TV in the morning and seeing the effects of this earthquake and just the waves rolling in with burning debris in it, and it's sort of like one of those things, just like 9/11, that like fused into your mind. It was an absolutely horrific disaster. It says this is the story of a man who took a job. Kazuto Tatsuta was an amateur artist who signed on to the dangerous task of cleaning up the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant, which the workers came to call Ichi F. This is the story of that challenging work, of the trials faced by the local citizens, and of the unique camaraderie that developed between the mostly blue-collar workers who had to face the devious and invisible threat of radiation on a daily basis. After 6 months, Tatsuto's body had absorbed the maximum annual dose of radiation allowed by regulations, and he was forced to take a break from the work crew, giving him the time to create this unprecedented award-winning view of daily life at Fukushima Daiichi. So I thought that just sounded absolutely fascinating. Kind of look within the after effects of the disaster, and I think dealing with like Chernobyl and all along those lines are just, I find it absolutely fascinating. But the artwork looks pretty good, and like I said, it's a bit of a chunker of a manga. I'm planning on probably saving this until November when we have nonfiction November, so it'll be a little bit twist on the nonfiction. I'll be reading a manga as well. So those are the books in my book haul. I don't know if I can do the stack. We'll try. Maybe not. I just dropped them all. That's it for my book haul. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And let me know if any of these sounded interesting to you. If you think you might want to take a little stab at some manga or a very humorous middle grade book. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.